Am I done with videos? Of course I'm not! I am back! So the Splatoon devs have announced patch version 2.1.0 of Splatoon 3, which is released on January 18th, 2023. Alright, let's see what we got. For the aerospray, the size of painted area by falling bullets, or spray, whatever, has been increased by 10%. So it's basically like main power-up, applied a little on aerospray. Nothing really big besides getting specially a little faster, perhaps more considerable for aerospray RG and its Booyah Bomb. Moving on with the jet squelcher, where it's indicated they reduced the blur when firing on land by 17%. I suppose that given that they're not talking about shot spread variance, that must mean they've reduced the ground RNG of the weapon and gave it more actual accuracy. This is a notable thing to point out to understand this balance, because the shot spread variance is a value in statistics and probability theory that, in the case of Splatoon, makes it so that the weapon is more likely to shoot in the center of its reticle rather than the sides without changing the value of the RNG of the weapon, or in better terms, the size of the reticle. Given that they spoke a lot about reducing the shot spread variance of some weapons in the more recent patch notes of Splatoon 2, not 3, 2, I assume that they reduced the values of the jet squelcher's ground RNG to give it more accuracy and translated that to us players as reducing the blur when firing on land. Either way, that's a nice buff for this weapon, considering Jet Squelcher originally has the same ground RNG as Splash-o-matic Pro, but struggled more with its accuracy given that it's a longer ranged weapon, at least from my experience. Next up, they have increased the painting radius of Splash-o-matic Nova's shots by 19%. Yes, this weapon can paint better now. Not a substantial buff like RNG or damage buff, but this weapon kinda struggled with painting as well, so it's a nice bonus. I had to read both the translated Japanese notes and the English notes to better understand some adjustments, like for Dynamo Roller. It seems they adjusted the damage fall-off rate so that the weapon can deal 100 or 50 of damage at a farther distance. From what I understand, it seems this weapon could be dealing damage more effectively within the current range of both horizontal and vertical things, so to say. Is it gonna be noticeable down the line? We'll see that in battle. Next, they increased the minimum damage of the horizontal flick from 30 to 35 for Big Swing Roller. Not a very interesting balance here, perhaps trying to help a weak roller stand better in battle by making it 3 shots instead of 4 shots, but still. They reduced the ink consumption of Bamboozler by about 17%, which is nice, nothing more to say here. They increased the fire duration of Nautilus by about 15%, which is actually a big deal for this weapon because even with a full charge, with resuming charge, and with charge holding, this weapon kinda suffered from not having enough fire duration. Last but not least, for main weapons, they increased the ink consumption of Slashing Machine by 10%. This nerf is probably made to drive some player away from playing this weapon, given it might suffer from worse ink management than before. But let's be honest, vanilla Slashing Machine was busted from the get-go. From the moment we knew it would return with Fizzy Bomb and a much better special than Splashdown. And sadly, this nerf will ripple over the future Slashing Machine kits, which will probably be still overshadowed by the vanilla machine itself. Yeah, I think I'm ready for this nerf. There's only one change among sub-weapons, and this one change concerns the new sub itself, Angle Shooter, or sometimes called a line marker. Its damage has been increased from 30 to 35, and the radius of ink coverage when hitting terrains or opponents with Angle Shooter has been roughly doubled, meaning more ink will appear on your feet if you get hit by an Angle Shooter, so be careful if you get hit by one. In comparison, there are many changes applied to some specials here and there. First of all, some effects of the Tacticular, which include respawning in 1 second and retaining your special gauge after dying, were straight up nullified by the gear abilities known as Haunt and Respawn Punisher. And while the effects of these abilities will still occur under normal conditions, that is when not grabbing the drink, it seems that Haunt and Respawn Punisher will no longer negate those specific effects of the Tacticular. This is gonna make some weapons with Tacticular more difficult to deal with for other weapons, like Elito dealing with Enzap who just grabbed its drink. And speaking of Enzap, from my testing, with some quick respawn included, it seems that even if we equip Respawn Punisher, it will still keep the initial delay in respawning time, but it won't straight up negate the respawning effects of Tacticular anymore. This is actually a setup I heard is being very popular in Japan right now, correct me if I'm wrong, and honestly I can see why. It's like they're using ways to suppress the negative effects of Respawn Punisher towards themselves in order to only keep the effects towards the enemy. Like they're trying to make this ability viable on the front lines instead of just the back lines. It's very uncanny but also very creative. It's something we can experiment more if we dare doing so. Personally, I think it's a better setup for a weapon with a faster fire rate and higher DPS like Dapple Dualies. Alright, moving on with Riftsider, they adjusted the invulnerability window after exploding until we can move again to 28 out of 60 seconds or 28 frames, which is a little less than half a second. I don't know much for how long this invulnerability window lasted before. I don't know if it's made longer or not. I don't know if it's a good thing, but apparently it seems so. Let me know in the comments below what you think about this adjustment and the balance patch so far. Next up, it seems they started making triple inkstrike more deadly again as they increased the damage reduced by 10%, as well as the amount of damage inflicted by a whopping 50%. So beware, if you get hit by this special, you might not escape alive. I mean, apparently one single inkstrike can take down a crab tank along with the enemy with Object Shredder and destroy the Weabomb armor with the enemy without Object Shredder. Speaking of which, they reduced the base duration of crab tank from 9 seconds to 8 seconds. Now keep in mind, this concerns the main duration of the tank when moving and using auto-fire, as I believe its duration decreases more rapidly with both damage and using the grenade launcher of the tank. Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe this tank duration nerf is a pretty good nerf, because if the duration is reduced across the whole line, this could make it easier for the player to deal with an enemy crab tank. Keep also in mind that this nerf concerns the base duration of the crab tank with no special power-up equipped at all. In theory, this nerf should force tank users to start equipping some special power-up, and to go along with that, the devs increased the extension rate of the crab tank duration with special power-up equipped. That means that special power-up will be more effective with fewer amount of disability than it will normally be. No need to be crazy with the amount of special charge equipped, and besides, the duration of crab tank when using the maximum amount of special power-up will be the same as before. Lastly, here's all the weapons whose base special point requirement has been changed. Splash Shot, Hero Shot, Gal 52, Garnet 6, Splash Shot Nova and Splash Duelist will go from 200 to 190, while Splash Shot Pro will descend from 190 to 180. Whereas Custom Junior and Splatana Wiper will go from 180 to 190 and Sloshing Machine will increase from 210 to an unfortunate 220. Ninja Squid also appears to be affected in this patch. Normally you leave some trail of ink behind you when swimming in your ink, and Ninja Squid hides that trail of ink, making you practically invisible to the eye of the enemy while swimming in your ink. With this patch though, it seems the devs made something similar to what they did with Stealth Jump, as now the ink trail will still show up for half a second after entering swim form, before disappearing entirely. The developers explained they made this change to mitigate the issue for players, apparently most players shooting at each other from a short distance, who will lose sight of their Ninja Squid opponent. There is also an issue regarding the use of swim speed up being used along with Ninja Squid. Given that Ninja Squid reduces your swim speed, players used swim speed up to remedy to that issue, but apparently the effects of swim speed up were also further decreased by Ninja Squid after patch version 3.0 of Splatoon 2. This side effect is no more in effect after patch version 2.1 of Splatoon 3, making swim speed up more viable again with Ninja Squid. Alright, so let's talk about the main elephant in the room, or in this case the main whale in the aquarium, Splash-o-matic. Even recently I saw people complain yet again about the weapon being busted on its own and with burst bomb. No crab tank and no damage up whatsoever. They want its ink efficiency brought down. They want burst bomb to cost more ink. They want this, they want that. They want the special cost to be brought down. Okay, this one I can get behind. They just want the weapon to be brought down any way possible so that it becomes more bearable to play against them. Listen, we've had Splash-o-matic designed that way ever since Splatoon 1. In every game we've had a Splash-o-matic variant paired with a burst bomb. Neither in Splatoon 1 or Splatoon 2 have we complained about that weapon combo at its core to such a degree. So why did we have to wake up now? This weapon was designed at its core to have perfect accuracy, good fire rate, and weak DPS and shorter range than Splash Shot to mitigate the whole thing. Change one thing on this main weapon and every other variant down the line will be affected by the changes, even if their kit won't be as good as Burst Bomb and Crab Tank. Make any single change to Burst Bomb. I mean, it's already been nerfed in Splatoon 1 where we could fire 3 or 4 Burst Bombs at a time, and now we can only throw 1 or 2. Make any single change to Burst Bomb and every weapon possessing this sub-weapon will be affected by the change. What, you want only V-Splash to start having RNG and Burst Bomb to cost more ink only with V-Splash? No. That's not how it works. You change one of these things, the other variants will have to follow the same change. It's called consistency, and it's gonna be messed up if only V-Splash is specifically nerfed on the main or sub-weapon. Look, I think V-Splash is good the way it is right now. It's powerful, but not overpowered as some may think. Neither the main weapon, nor the sub, nor the kit itself. This weapon is easily counterable in many ways. Tank has been nerfed a little, but not to the point of being unusable with other weapons like Splat Duelist and V-Pro. It's not just Splash-o-matic only that has Crab Tank. This special is not undefeatable, it can be easily destroyed. We're given more options to destroy Tank now, and there's nothing you can do to avoid playing against Double Tank. In fact, the legitimately only way I can see and even want V-Splash to be nerfed is for it to increase the special point requirement to something like 220 or even 230 at the very least, in order to prevent Splash from getting crab tanked too often, and to 10 for Splat Duelies and V-Pro, by the way. Because Splash-o-matic can quickly cover a lot of turf in no time with both the main and sub weapon, this weapon is bound to get special very often unless the devs increase the special point requirement on the weapon, which is the only thing that can be fine-tuned on weapons that does not need to be consistent for every weapon with the same special. And it's gonna be most necessary to prevent this special from appearing too often with this weapon. I repeat, there are a multitude of ways to deal with crab tank, there are a multitude of ways to fight crab tank. Moving on. I'd like to reflect on Ninja Squid as well. I like the way the devs took a similar approach to nerfing Ninja Squid as they did to nerf Stealth Jump, as stated before. Both abilities were made for a more stealthy approach to the gameplay of Splatoon, but they ended up being game-breaking due to the fact that, aside from using any marking tool, like point sensor or wave breaker, etc., which is not often employed to begin with, no one had any clue how they would spot the player using these abilities. Especially Slayer players, who are the ones who almost always use one of the two abilities, if not both. Why? Because they are on the front lines most often. They're gonna need some tool to move hidden towards the enemy by either having their super jump spot hidden or their moving ink trail hidden. Now at first in Splatoon 1, every Slayer, if not everyone, used quick respawn along with stealth jump, so that they would respawn faster and have their jump location hidden in order to prevent spawn camping. But there was two problems. One, nobody would see them coming, and two, quick respawn was effective every time we died, which turned anyone using this ability into a glorified zombie. So not only Slayers could return fast, they would return unnoticed and turn the tides instantly despite having their super jumping speed reduced. So going into Splatoon 2, the developers mitigated that with having quick respawn activated by not only slaying the enemy during the time between the player's last death from an enemy and their current death. On top of that, they made the super jumping location of stealth jump users visible from up close while restoring the super jumping speed to normal. This would ensure that players passing by the super jumping location would notice the enemy arriving while still keeping the original purpose of stealth jump, which is not having their super jumping location visible at first. This would still ensure that players with a longer ranged weapon, most notably Charger and Splatling users, will not notice the enemy's jumping location from the distance. But despite these changes, these abilities still were widely used among Slayers, albeit they were made more bearable for the enemy, but still. This is basically the same scenario that's happening right now with Ninja Squid. In recent memory, some players complained about losing track of Ninja Squid users who tended to engage in close-range fights, even though the skirmishing enemy frequently switches between Kid and Squid form as they shoot and move around. This would confuse their enemy, which in turn would lead them to either make mistakes or retreat in a hurry, enabling them to kill them easily. And despite lowering the swim speed and reducing the effects of swim speed up in Splatoon 2, this was still not enough to mitigate the effect of Ninja Squid back then. So the developers heard the complaints and made the ink trail visible for like half a second going into swim form, while removing the reducing effect of the swim speed up ability from using Ninja Squid and keeping the initial reduction of swim speed. This would ensure that players get a general idea of the intents of the Ninja Squid user in close range fights by looking at the initial direction of their ink trail. With these changes, the devs claim to have intentionally maintained the way to approach players with longer range weapons, such that going undercover in the middle of the map to approach weapons like Heater or Hydra with Ninja Squid will still be a viable option. But if they can still notice your ink trail from afar, they could still get a main idea as to where you could be going. So as a Ninja Squid user, your best bet will be to find a way to not make them notice your ink trail at the start. Some people still use Ninja Squid after all, but we shall see how this nerf affects this ability on the long run, and if it's still gonna be used long after this nerf. Lastly, since Ttek was released, people have been increasingly using this weapon as the main triple ink strike weapon, and with the tri-strike buff, it's most likely gonna become the main ink strike weapon overall. Even if I kinda wish some other tri-strike weapon will be used more often, like Splat Umbrella or Rapid Blaster. Normal one, not the pro one. Though I won't blame anyone going for Ttek more often. I just think that Splat Umbrella or Rapid Blaster have their uses and could be experimented more further in their respective field, which in both cases would be more support midline rather than Slayer. And that's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed this one, and make sure to like and subscribe and tell your thoughts on the patch in the comments below. This was Sonic, and I'll see you next time. Peace.